What's going on, people? Hope you're all well. Big up to all of you this evening. Make sure you go check out the last stream if you haven't done so already. And also, make sure you head over to the Hybrid Squad, show them some love, and also make sure that you check out my latest show with Sophie that we did earlier. Fantastic one. I did a top 5 of non-negotiables this season at Arsenal. And yeah, I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. And it was a short show as well. It was only about a half hour, 40 minutes long. So please make sure you go and show some love over there. Make sure you subscribe to the Hybrid Squad. We're on the way to 20K. So make sure you do that. We are only around about 60 away from 21K. So please make sure you're part of that this evening. Hit the subscribe button. It's absolutely free. And it will send us on our way to our next target, which is 30K. We are going for the big one. So make sure that you are all part of that so that we can all get there. We're going to be talking all things Arsenal tonight. We're going to be talking about Nico Williams and the interest that many clubs have got, but Arsenal are apparently one of them. That is potentially very exciting. We're going to talk a little bit about Emil Smith-Rowe and what his future might look like at Arsenal or away from Arsenal, what clubs are bidding for him, how we have rejected bids and what that bids might look like. And then, of course, we're going to talk about the Reece Nelson situation, who is interested in Reece. And then, of course, we're going to be talking about some of the other outgoings. Ramsdale, Eddie Nketiah. We're going to be talking about Kieran Tierney. Going to be looking at the future of Thomas Partey and then some of the other names that people have completely and utterly forgotten about. So that is what we are going to be doing tonight. Big up to all of you in the chat. Big up for all of you for watching and also those of you watching on catch up. Big up to Sean. Big up to Ola. Big up to Alan. Big up to Mark and big up to Garang. Also, everybody else that is listening. Let's get to it, shall we? I want to start with the Emil Smith-Rowe stuff because Emil Smith-Rowe is a player that I really like at Arsenal and he's a player that I think is well thought of at the club. I believe Mikel Arteta would be happy to keep Smith-Rowe. I don't believe Mikel Arteta wants rid of him. I don't think it's a player that he would look at and go, yeah, not good enough, get rid. I don't think that he is a player that is not seen in the future plans for Mikel Arteta. However, money talks. And if the right bid was to come in, I believe Emil Smith-Rowe would be allowed to leave Arsenal. Now, I don't think he wants to leave. And like I say, I don't think Arteta is desperate for him to go. But when you look at what we could do to try and upgrade the position, there always has to be a price for a player like that that could be available to leave the club. And that's why I believe that Emil Smith-Rowe could potentially leave the club this summer. Now, we're being told that there's bids that have come in and been rejected by Fulham and Crystal Palace. Some rumours are suggesting that the bids from Palace and Fulham were insulting. Some people are suggesting that the bids from Fulham and Palace were around about 20 to 25 million. And some are suggesting that it was a hell of a lot lower than that. What do we believe? Well, it's been rejected. So I imagine it certainly wasn't very tempting. Before I go on, make sure you do me a favor, people. Make sure you come follow this guy, man. Absolute ledge. Love Henry. We all love Henry. Even though he's a Spurs fan, we do love Henry. He's one of the good guys. So please make sure you go over to Henry Wright TV and Henry Wright Talks Football. Please make sure you do that, people. Big up to Henry. I hope you're well, my bro. Listen, I want to talk about Smith-Rowe because AFC stuff, I don't know how many of you like AFC stuff. Some people think it's not a good place. Some people think it is a good place. But we're going to go through some of their tweets tonight because there's quite a lot of news that I want to discuss and talk about with you guys. How much is Smith-Rowe going to go for? That is one of the questions I have. Is Emil Smith-Rowe going to go for a lot of money? Is Emil Smith-Rowe going to go for absolute pennies? Who knows? I have absolutely no idea. But what I will say is that I think there's going to be an opportunity for us to get quite a hefty amount from Fulham because they are willing to go up to 40 million from what we understand. That's what I believe. Now, 40 million would then be tempting. For a player who's been injury prone for the best part of 18 months, you're going to look at that and think that, yeah, there's an opportunity for us to then go and take a look at selling Emil Smith-Rowe. Now, I want to share the screen and go through some of these that we are looking at right now in terms of the AFC stuff, which is a fairly reliable Twitter account that looks at other individuals that they see reliable journalist-wise and promotes what's happening at the moment. And this has come from Simon Collins. Arsenal are braced for fresh bids for Emil Smith-Rowe. Fulham have made the player one of their top summer transfer targets. Crystal Palace are also interested in Smith-Rowe and are expected to make an official approach for him. Now, we are being told that it is going to take probably upwards of 35 to 40 million for us to be tempted to Emil Smith-Rowe. And Fulham have said they'll go up to 40 million. Now, is the next bid going to be a 40 million or is it going to be a 35 million plus add-ons? I expect it probably will be. That is what we're going to be looking at, I think, to actually look at and go, okay, let's talk. When people are bidding 15, 18, 20, 25, I don't think we're going to be interested. And I think they've probably tried to test the waters, which I don't blame them for doing. He's a player that's young, has potential, but let's be real, for the last 18 months, he hasn't been able to get into the first team at Arsenal, and he hasn't been very free from injury. So I can see why they're starting there, but they have to appreciate that when they look around the market and players like Max Kilman are going for 40 million and players like Eddie Nketiah are being tipped to go for a lot of money and players like Elliot Anderson are going for a lot of money, we need to look at Smith-Rowe and say, right, you need to be starting at 40 and going up from there. So I can see why that is the bid that people are looking at. Now, I'm not a huge lover of bidding wars, if I'm honest, because I find it a little bit embarrassing, if I'm honest. But I do think that if we can get into one that's healthy, I think we should look at doing it. And Emil Smith-Rowe is a player that I think we could potentially look at. I'm not a huge sort of admirer of the way he's played of the last 12 months. But when he did start to come on, I would say the Luton game, and also I would say the what game was it? Everton game, last game of the season. Smith-Rowe actually looked pretty good. You know, he did. So if he shows that kind of form, then perhaps there's something there. So watch this space on Emil Smith-Rowe and see where we're going. Keep your eyes peeled. I imagine something will be happening in the coming days in terms of another bid. And I think that we might be willing to discuss it. One thing I will say is we haven't shut it down, have we? We haven't come out and said that he's not for sale. We haven't come out and said that there's no point coming in because he's not going to be leaving. That would suggest to me that we are interested in negotiating and having a bit of a chat about it. So, yeah, I would say keep your eyes peeled on this one and let's see what happens. As for the next bit of news, this has come from James Benge. Now, this to me would worry me slightly. The reason it would worry me slightly is because I think we need a transfer window that makes Man City and other people around us go, wow, Arsenal look ready now. And I'm not so sure by these comments that we're going to be ready. This has come from James Benge. Sources close to Arsenal expect a summer where the profile of new recruits is more in line to Jorginho and Trossard. According to CBS Sports sources, it's a squad deeper in quality that is Arsenal's immediate priority right now. This worries me, people, because we don't need just strength in depth. We need players that are going to come into that first 11 and allow the current players who are in the first 11 to become squad players. I don't mean all of them. I mean the likes of Jesus, the likes of Kai Havertz, and certainly at the moment, the likes of our left back, who we don't even know who he is, right? So if we can bring in Calafiori, if we can bring in a left 8 or a number 6 to complement Rice and Odegaard, if we can bring in a striker, if we want to bring in a left winger, then we're then replacing on the bench. We've got Trossard's on the bench. We've got Martinelli's on the bench. We've got Havertz, Jesus on the bench. That's the sort of players we need to be bringing in. Now, Mikel Merino is being touted as one that we're interested in, and we'll come on to him in a minute. But if that's the sort of player that's going to come in to be an example of one of the options, I'm cool with it. But if it's going to be that we've got to get excited for, and he's going to be the player that we look at as the most exciting, then I have got some problems. That's for sure. So yeah, then we go on to the training. There's been day 1, day 2, day 3 of training. Everybody looking fit in training, which is all good. Of course, we've got Euros and Copa America people still traveling back from, but they will be joining the team pretty soon. Lewis Skelly, Nwaneri, and Aidan Heaven are our first team pre-season training as well, which is always good. And Thomas Partey with a smile on his face in training today also. Then we look at the players that are coming back from the Euros. And of course, we're going to touch on Calafiori there because that is a deal that just has to get done. I'm going to say that now. It has to get done. This one comes in from James Benge again, saying that Arsenal have kept a close eye on Real Sociedad last season. Now, they're talking about Real Sociedad, the football club, in terms of the players that they've got. And there's a few that we're looking at, apparently. The CBS Sports sources have confirmed that we are admirers of Mikel Merino and have held interest in midfielder Martin Zubimendi, who I thought was brilliant when he came on in the final against England. We're also looking at the left winger, Ander Baranetskia. Now, I don't know anything about him. I have absolutely no idea who he is, and I've never even heard of him. But he, of course, is a player that we're looking at apparently too. So I feel like these Real Sociedad players, I've got to want to leave the club. Zubimendi, I don't think wants to leave Spain, let alone the club. I don't think that Merino is a player that I would look at and go, yes, he's got his heart set on Arsenal. But I'm being told by the raw sources that we look at that he's probably more likely to be tempted to come than Zubimendi. And the winger that, let's be real, I haven't heard of until just now. So let this one sink in. keep an eye on it and see where we're at with it, because it's going to be an interesting one for sure. Let's take a look at this news, because this one I'm not too sure about, man. I'm not going to lie. I'm being sort of optimistic on this one, but this is quite a negative one. It is saying that it's all but confirmed that Chido Obi Martin will be leaving Arsenal this summer. It's understood the player will make the final decision on his future next week. Now, I've been told that Chido Obi Martin would like to stay at Arsenal and is just trying to sort out a financial situation. Mikel Arteta, I believe, wants to keep him. I think the club and the coaching staff have been very impressed by him, scoring 10 goals in a game, 7 goals in a game, 5 goals in a game, hat-tricks for fun. Left, right, and centre, he's been putting the ball in the back of the net. And we've seen Lamine Yamal come in and do the business at the age of 16 and 17. Maybe Chido Obi Martin could be the next best thing at Arsenal. Who knows? I'm not putting him in that bracket, because really we only have 1 or 2 that come onto the scene in the 16 and 17 age bracket, right? Like Cesc Fabregas did, like Wayne Rooney did over the years. Not many people come onto the scene at that age and take their first team place, ball by the horns, and stay in it, right? But maybe he could be that guy. He's a striker. We clearly need a striker. I'm not suggesting that we need to promote him as a striker now and believe that he's the guy that we need instead of an Isak Toney or somebody like that. But what I will say is that he's got the opportunity, I think, this season to be a part of a squad where we're going to need that position covered. Now, he could be the next Eddie Nketiah type player that comes through and is the upgrade there, but we get the striker in as well. So I think keep an eye on this one. I think he will stay. He's definitely not got any loyalty to Arsenal. Believe he's from Denmark. So he's not a player that you look at and think, wow, he's staying because, you know, he's loves the club and he's a proper London boy and all that kind of stuff. So there would be temptations from elsewhere, maybe Bayern Munich, I think, who are interested, and other teams abroad. So I think we've got to keep an eye on this one with Chido Obi Martin. But I do believe that there's positive news coming out of this one. So don't be too negative on this one, I don't believe. So let's see what happens there. The next bit of news is about Kieran Tierney and Aaron Ramsdale, now AFCC stuff. This has come from Gunner Blog, believe it or not. Will be keen to secure moves, both Aaron Ramsdale and Tierney, which will allow them to play regular first-team football again. Reece Nelson and Eddie Nketiah are likely to go on Arsenal's tour of USA, but could well be sold before the end of the transfer window. Now, Reece Nelson and Eddie Nketiah are 2 players that I believe will be sold. And I have to say, I think both Ramsdale and Tierney will be as well. I don't know how bad the injury is to Tierney. I don't know if it's going to keep him out for a hell of a long time. Ramsdale, we've all spoken about tonight on the show earlier, talking about his future. And I think Eddie Nketiah will probably get into some form of little bidding war between a few Premier League clubs. I don't know how many of them want him. Is it West Ham, Wolves, Palace, Fulham? Is it all of them? I think that he would be a good signing for one of those teams. But we have to see if they're serious about it. And as for Reece Nelson, there's only really West Ham and Palace that have flirted with him so far. I think Nottingham Forest were looking at him as well. So maybe we'll get some bids coming in. We want around about 20 to 25 million. I think we'll be lucky to get 15 to 20, if I'm honest, because he hasn't played enough football in the last 18 months. But I do think that he could be a player that can come on to have a good future at the club, if I'm honest, and have a good future at one of those Premier League sides. So I think keep an eye on that one for sure. As we move up, we look at some of the players that are on holiday, and then we get to this one. Now, this has come from Dean Jones. Apparently, this has come on the Rank Squad podcast. He says, on Arsenal, I'd look out for Mikel Merino. That is true. There is something in Merino. I don't know how far it has gone yet, but I think it will become quite clear soon. Something's happened, at least in initial discussion. Now, Mikel Arteta is a big admirer, we've been told, of Mikel Merino. It's not a player I knew much about until his name was mentioned, and then he had a very good Euros. He had a good Euros because he obviously won the tournament, but he was coming on and actually contributing. And he was coming on and he was actually making a difference. He scored the winner against Germany, as you know, for Spain. So he's a player that I look at and think, yeah, potentially this could be an option for us for sure. I think he can come in as a midfielder that can give some squad depth and some confidence to our backup to Rice, because we haven't got a box-to-box midfielder. And he has a lot of defensive qualities as well as ball-carrying qualities. And I think that is the perfect box-to-box midfielder that we need. I think Granit Xhaka was kind of missed. We didn't replace him, that's for sure. And I think we needed to keep Xhaka and add Rice, not replace Xhaka with Rice. Because as much as it's an upgrade, Granit Xhaka was needed as well, because Rice was actually playing in the 6 for most of the season. So Merino, if he's coming in, I think Merino could actually come in and be the 8 that squad rotates with Rice. I think right now, Partey, Rice and Odegaard are started if everyone's fit. But how fit is Partey going to be? And if Partey doesn't go to Saudi and he stays, how many games are we going to get out of him? So I think we still need a 6 and an 8, which is why I'm calling out for a 6 and an 8 to come. And if this is going to be the 8, We go all out for that 6. Let's take a look at this bit of news here, because Tommy Setford has agreed a personal terms on a contract until 2028 with Arsenal, and that's after the club have agreed a fee with Ajax, which is worth a few $100,000 apparently, 400,000 plus bonuses. They've said it's up to $1 million with everything added in, so Arsenal have probably lost themselves out on £1 million. But let's be real, it's for a third choice goalkeeper. We hope to confirm the transfer this week. That's come from Mike Verwey. I believe personally this is a third choice goalkeeper that is going to be a homegrown option for us. There's nothing more than that. So I believe that there's the only option, the only reason we're buying this guy is because he's going to sit on the bench and develop with the squad for the next few seasons. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it will be a good signing that we can look at, forget about, and just have as a homegrown quota. It's not going to be one that takes us all to the next level. It's not going to set the world alight. But let's just allow it to happen, yeah? I've seen some people lose their heads over this. Oh, my God, we're signing a goalkeeper that's 18. Right? Ignore it. Let it happen. He's going to be third choice. You're not going to see him. Let him sit on the bench. Let him learn off of everybody. Let him enjoy the coach, the goalkeeping coach, and learn off of David Raya and whoever else we bring in. Let's just let it happen. I'll be amazed if we do bring him in as number 2. That will not be happening. We will be getting somebody else. If Aaron Ramsdale goes, that is, of course. So watch this space. Yeah, for sure. I keep saying watch this space. Someone commented the other day saying, you keep saying watch this space. It's something I've got a habit of doing. So that's that. Let's take a look at what else we've got other than Saka and Southgate and some of the England stuff. There was some more stuff that was up here as well. This, nope, the next one about Reece Nelson. Where are we? Yes, we've got this here. Okay. Reece Nelson comes soon. We've got this from Gunnerblog. Arsenal are keen to strengthen the central midfield position if the opportunity arises. They've closely followed João Neves, which we'll touch on in a minute, as well as Miko Marino, who we've just spoken about, and Martin Zubimendi. The current thinking is that a significant midfield arrival may require Thomas Partey to be sold. Now, I agree that if Thomas Partey is sold, we 100% have to get that midfielder in that makes us go, wow. But even if Partey's staying, we need a 6 and an 8, right? Because Partey's not reliable. Jorginho's 33. Rice, if you're wanting him to play in the 6, that means we have to get another 8 in. If you're wanting Rice to play in the 6, in the 8, and Partey and Jorginho aren't available, then who is our 6? So we've got players that can play in there that aren't reliable, when we've got players that can only play in one position. Because if Rice is out, right now, what is our midfield trio? Partey, Jorginho, and Ødegaard? It's a worry. It's a worry. So, yeah, we need to keep, in my opinion, our current midfielders and add to them, not just replace one for one. We need to improve on it. We've lost El Neni already. We needed a midfielder with El Neni. So now we need 2, a 6 and an 8. As for João Neves, I think this one's quite an interesting story, actually. I don't know how much they are wanting, but he has got a £120 million release clause, and they want the majority of it paid up front. I would believe they understand they're not going to get 120, but they think they can probably get close to 100. I think 90 million would be able to get João Neves to a club. And I think PSG and Manchester United are sniffing around him. Arsenal and City were linked with him. And he is a baller, by the way. He can play in the 8. He's the perfect 8. I think he'd be fitting for the Premier League. And I know people will say it's physical and it might not suit him. But this guy is a baller. He gives me Santi Cazorla vibes in terms of his quick feet. I've been very impressed by what I've seen of him, and the little that I've seen of him has been impressive. He's 19 years old. He's got an unbelievable ceiling, very highly rated midfielder. And I think this would excite teams, if I'm honest. So, yeah, keep an eye on João Neves and look at the name. Take a look at him on YouTube and see what you think. This one comes next, which is in relation to... where is he? Setford we've spoken about. Williams. Here we go. So I've said on the title that we're linked with Williams, and it's kind of not a heavy rumoured link. The Athletic reported that, of course, Arteta is a massive fan of him and that he would be the number 1 if we were to get Nico Williams or a striker. Sorry, if we were to get a winger, he'd be the number 1 that he would want was Nico Williams. So that's exciting, right? We believe Nico Williams' heart is set on a dream move to Barcelona. He wants to stay in Spain. It's a £49 million release clause, so it's not about money or how many people can get it done. We know what the price is, but Barcelona apparently can't afford him. Now, they can't afford him at £49 million release clause, and they can't afford his wages. But we've heard this many times. Barcelona ain't got no money. Barcelona are in debt. Barcelona have to sell before they buy, and it always seems to work out majestically for them. Frustrating. But it is saying here, and this has come from Team News. I've heard rumours that we were due to speak to Nico Williams this week. This is Arsenal, to see if there's a chance of persuading him to join us. The rumour was we've prepared a Declan Rice-like presentation to him. I've spoken to someone at the club who reiterated that we would absolutely love him and we will take a chance if we get it. Now, the last part is important. If we get it, he's got to want to come to Arsenal. That's what's got to happen. He's got to say, yes, I'm interested. He's got to say, yes, Mikel Arteta, I want to play for you, under you at Arsenal. And I don't believe that's what's happened at the moment. So that's what we're being told. Now, Romano's tweeted about Nico Williams as well within the last hour, I think, or maybe even a little bit longer than that now. I can't keep up with what's happening today. It's gone so quickly, suggesting that before English interest, Barcelona is looking like they're trying to try and swoop him. So it's probably going to happen, people. He's probably going to go Barcelona, right? Let's just be real about it. We would love him. £49 million isn't an issue. The wages wouldn't be an issue. But for me, it's probably going to be Barcelona where he heads. And that will be a shame because he's a top talent. And he's one player that I do like a lot and like the look of. And it would excite me. It really would. It would excite me a lot. So I think what's happening here. Let's see where we're at. It's going to be a very, very interesting window. But certainly for me, that one would be one that I think could light it up. So let's see what happens. The last piece of news that I wanted to talk about was, of course, Reiss Nelson. Reiss Nelson is linked with West Ham, people. He's linked with West Ham. This one comes from Sam J. Dean. It says that Reiss Nelson's another player of interest to West Ham. It's thought that he could be available for a fee in the region of 15 million to 20 million pounds. And I think that's fair. I think if West Ham are looking to get him for anything cheaper than that, I think it's a real insult to Reiss Nelson. You know, this is a player that's been very, very much in playing for, where did he go? Hoffenheim, Feyenoord, was contributing in both their seasons, has come and been a part of the Arsenal side. For this time, wasn't really playing enough football. So I can understand why you'd think you could get him for 2.5 million. Never going to happen. Yeah, we're going to ask as close to 20 million as we can. And I think it's a good deal. When you look at what's happening elsewhere and what other players are going for, you have to be realistic about it in this day and age. And you have to believe that it's going to be an opportunity for us to take some money off of these players. Now, I think there will be definitely an understanding that we can get 20 million at least for players like Reiss Nelson, 30 million at least for players like Eddie Nketiah, and 40 million for players like Emil Smith-Rowe. That's just me talking from what the market's like. Whether you believe that is enough or not enough is a different debate. But I can only go on what other players are going for. And if Max Kilman's going for 40, and if players like, what's his name, Elliot Anderson are going for 35 million, then of course we're going to be looking at players in the ilk of Eddie Nketiah, Reiss Nelson and Smith-Rowe going for more than that, right? Because that's just real talk. That's just the way that it is. So I expect us to get some serious money for him. Now, Smith-Rowe looks like Fulham is the favourite. If they're going to offer like 40 to 45 million, we're going to get 30 plus for Eddie. We're going to get, say, 15 to 20 for Reiss Nelson. It's 100% profit off of those three Hale Enders. We're going to be able to spend quite a lot of money. So if we get players like Tierney and Ramsdale added to that as well, you're probably going to get 10 million for Tierney. You're probably going to get 25, 30 for Ramsdale. We're starting to build up like 150 million pounds here all of a sudden that we can then spend on another player, whether it's one player, two players, or three players. So if we are looking at the type of players that we're linked with just now, Moreno is going to be 20 million to 25 tops. Nico Williams, if we were interested, is 50 million just under. So that's 70 million on a 8 and a winger. The rest of that money, Calafiori money, that's raised it up to 100 million. Goalkeeper money is going to be, let's say, 120 million. So you spent 120 million. You only really need to get a beast of a 6 and a striker, and you've had a good window. So we're not even talking about spending 200 or 300 million here to have a really good window. We might have to spend a lot of money in that midfield position. We might have to get Kimmich, who, to be fair, is probably not going to be, what's he going to be? I don't know, is he 40 or 50 million? Ivan Toney, 40 million. You could go get him from Brentford. So that's how you can start to pan out your window. Now, we all know that this is Arsenal, and that might be easier said than done. And we might be talking now as if it's so easy, but it might not be. It might be they're not the players we're going for. It might be Marino and Williams have both got their hearts set on Barcelona, and we have to look elsewhere. It might be that we look at Pedro Neto or Eze as an option instead. So, you know, I think we need to look at potentially how realistic some of these signings are. And we all want the dream window, right? We all want Alexander-Isak. We know it's not going to happen this window. We all want Frankie de Jong. It's probably not going to happen. We'd all like Bruno Guimaraes. It's probably not going to happen. We'd like João Neves. It might not happen. So when people talk about their dreams, Musiala is another one people have spoken about. A lot of people have spoken in the last couple of days about Leroy Sané. That could be more realistic than people think because Bayern Munich needs to sell. And if we was to offer 60 million, I think they'd probably say yes and we'd get him. How interested are we? Question mark. I know that he loves Arteta and Arteta loves him. That's for sure because of the Man City days. But is that a realistic signing? I'm not so sure. And some people don't want him. Some people don't. Some people think that no, he's not actually as great as what people think. So we have to be realistic as well, though. We have to. We can't go and get your Rodrigos that you might want on the right or your Alexander-Isaks up top. You've got to be realistic about it and understand that the window might not allow for that. So I think in the coming days, what you'll see at Arsenal to wrap up is you'll see some outgoings, big time. I think you will. How much they're going to go for is going to be the question mark. I think it's clear who Arsenal are going to sell. We know Ramsdale might be off. We know Tierney might be off. We know Lokonga and Tavares have gone. We know that it's going to be Eddie Nketiah, Reece Nelson, and Smith-Rowe. That's 7 players. There's question marks, I'm sure there's going to be on Fabio Vieira, on Thomas Partey, and on some of the players that people have potentially forgotten about. You might want to loan out. We've got Marquinhos there still, who's still on loan over in Brazil. You've got Charlie Patino, who's now back. You've got some of the youngsters that might be promoted or might be gone out on loan. We've spoken about Obi Martin. We've spoken about Ethan Maneri. Miles Lewis-Skelly is somebody that's been highly rated as well. Kozio Dubri's now gone. Sego Jr. might be leaving. So there's a lot that's going to be happening. Jacob Kivior and Zinchenko has been mentioned in the chat. Great shouts. What's going to happen with the future of them? What I will say, we need to get it done soon because the season starts in 4 weeks. The preseason is pretty much amongst us and a lot of our players aren't going to feature. So we need to get this done now. Let's see what happens. Going to leave it there, people. Have an unbelievably good evening. Make sure you do me a favor. I want you to do 3 things. I want you to hit the like button. I want you to please subscribe because we're only 60 away from 21k. And I also want you to go and spam the chat in Hussam's live show right now. I want you to say, Dan Potts sent me, 12th man raid, whatever you want to say in there. Go and show him some love because that will make him very, very happy. Absolute legends. Thank you all for being here. I'll speak to you soon. And as always, up the Arsenal. Latest, people.